say if a bride walks alone after midnight, she might hear the groom calling from his coffin. At night, the rain was falling relentlessly and dark clouds hung heavily in the sky. Shen Zichuan arrived at an unfamiliar town, exhausted from his journey. He was en route to an imperial exam, but the sudden downpour had stranded his boat, leaving him no choice but to seek refuge in a local inn. The innkeeper was an old man, his voice low and somewhat strange as he spoke. "Be careful. There's a funeral in town. The air is heavy with spirits. Stay inside and avoid wandering." Shen Zichuan nodded, indifferent to superstitions, and went to bed. But that night, something strange happened. In his dream, he wore a red robe, standing in a dimly lit hall. Paper lanterns flickered in the dark, casting long shadows. All around him, paper effigies of people knelt in silence. At the far end of the hall, a bride in a red veil walked slowly toward him, her steps graceful but unsettling. She reached out her delicate hand, fingers brushing his. She whispered softly, "Finally, you're here." The next morning, Shen Zichuan woke to find a red thread tied around his ring finger. The other end was snapped. He brushed it off as a strange coincidence, but the dreams continued. Each night, the bride appeared again, beckoning to him, speaking as if they were already bound together. 3 days later, Shen Zichuan wandered through the town, his mind clouded by the strange events. As he passed a mourning hall, he saw a familiar face on the funeral portrait. It was the bride from his dreams. Her name was Lin Wan, and she had died 3 months ago. Suddenly, an old beggar grabbed his arm, his eyes wide with terror. "Don't get closer. She's not looking for a husband. She's looking for a replacement." Lin Wan, the daughter of the wealthiest family in the town, had died mysteriously. Her illness had been swift, and in her final days, she had insisted on having a ghost marriage arranged, a marriage to a man who would take her place in the afterlife. Shen Zichuan, a man with no family, with no one to miss him, had been chosen for this grim fate. That night, as the storm raged outside, Shen Zichuan locked himself in his room, desperately trying to avoid sleep. But the air in the room grew heavy, as if the walls themselves were closing in. Suddenly, the door creaked open. Shen Zichuan looked up, and there, standing at the foot of his bed, was the bride. She was no longer just a dream. She stood there, her face pale, her eyes wide, filled with longing. "You promised you would stay with me forever, didn't you?" she whispered, her voice filled with a chilling affection. The next morning, the innkeeper noticed that Shen Zichuan had disappeared. His room was empty, and the only trace left behind was a faint, dark shadow in the mirror, an empty face where his own should have been. no one ever spoke of him again. And the bride, she waited. She would always wait.